There's something nobody talks about regarding the attraction a person feels for a Scorpio. People call it passion, they call it obsession, they call it intensity, but there's a more accurate name for it, and that name is inevitability. Because when someone who truly feels something for you decides you're the one, no distance can overcome it, no time can erase it, no logic can convince them otherwise. And deep down, you already knew this. You'd already noticed that pattern. That person who disappears and comes back, who tries to distance themselves and can't, who says they've forgotten, but their eyes betray the opposite. You noticed. Of course you noticed. Scorpios always notice. But what you may not yet know is why this happens to you specifically, why this cycle repeats itself around you, why people who swore they'd left you behind reappear, sometimes months later, sometimes years, with an excuse, with a message, with a look that says everything without saying anything. This is not coincidence. This is not luck, nor bad luck. This is something the universe operates through you, almost without asking permission. And what this video will do is help you understand exactly how this mechanism works, not so you can use it against someone, but so you can stop questioning what you feel when the evidence is already right in front of you. Because there's a question that Scorpio carries in silence for a long time. Does this person really feel something for me? Or am I misinterpreting it? And the answer the universe is trying to give you through the patterns surrounding your life is, you never misinterpreted it. You just didn't yet have the right vocabulary to name what you were seeing. There's a physics behind the attraction that Scorpio evokes. It's not magic in the naive sense of the word. It's something more precise than that. Scorpio operates on a level of presence that most people never experience. It's not physical presence, it's energetic presence. That kind of attention that, when you direct it towards someone, makes that person feel like they're the only one in the room. As if everything they thought about themselves needed to be revised. As if you knew something about them that they haven't yet discovered, and that feeling is simultaneously the most attractive and the most terrifying thing there is. Most people don't know what to do with that feeling, so they distance themselves, not because they don't want to be near you, but because proximity to a Scorpio demands that you be real. It demands that you abandon the curated, filtered, presentable version of yourself. And that's scary, because Scorpio doesn't accept a reduced version. You see through it. You always have. And people sense that even when you don't say a word, then they disappear. They try to create distance. They try to convince themselves that what they felt wasn't real, that it was too intense, that they need something simpler, lighter. But the universe has a curious way of exposing this kind of self-deception, because what was real doesn't dissolve just because someone decided to look the other way. It stays, it waits, it accumulates pressure, like water behind a sluice gate, silent on the outside, immense on the inside. And Scorpio knows this better than any other being. You've felt this accumulation. You've stood before someone who claimed to feel nothing anymore and knew with a certainty that needed no proof that it was a lie. Not because you're paranoid, because you read the frequency beneath the word. You always have. That's how you were built. And that's exactly what makes it impossible for someone who truly had you to pretend that. It was while searching for answers to this that I found this digital book, The Divine Path That Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Life of Purpose. And what surprised me wasn't what it says about love. That's what he talks about regarding recognition, about Scorpio's ability to sense with surgical precision what another person feels and still remain in doubt, not because the signal isn't clear, but because Scorpio learned too early that trusting what they feel can come at a high price. And this book works precisely on that level, not as generic self-help, as a mirror that shows why you function the way you do and what to do about it. You are in that moment right now, with that question still open, with that person still occupying space within you, even if you don't want to admit it out loud. That is exactly the state in which this content needs to be accessed, when the question is still alive, when the discomfort is still active. Not after you've already tried to solve everything on your own and reached a conclusion that doesn't seem complete. The link is in the first pinned comment. But be aware, this content may be taken down. Click now and download your copy. Now, tell me in the comments, have you ever felt that someone was thinking about you before they even appeared? That a message arrived exactly when you were thinking their name? Write it below. I want to understand how this pattern appears in everyone's life. It fades with distance, and that's why they come back. Not because they're weak, but because what happened between you left a mark that time doesn't dissolve. And at some point, the person needs to face that. Now, this is where things get more interesting and also more uncomfortable, because Scorpio, in the midst of all this, has a pattern that few talk about. A pattern that you probably recognize in yourself, but rarely admit aloud. You feel all of this. You see all of this. You notice when someone is pulling away even before they do. You feel the tension before any words are spoken, and then instead of acting, you wait, you observe. You test, not cruelly, but inevitably, as if you need to be sure that what the person feels is real before allowing yourself to believe it. And this waiting has a cost. Not because it's wrong, but because while you wait for confirmation, the other person might interpret your silence as disinterest. They might think you feel nothing. They might use this perceived distance as a reason to distance themselves even further. And then you have two beings in a dynamic. Two who feel deeply, who desperately want something, but who protect what they feel so much that communication happens almost entirely invisibly. It's a beautiful and exhausting paradox at the same time. And the universe, curiously, doesn't wait for you to resolve this paradox before acting. It acts while you're still processing. It acts through encounters that seem chance, but have a very precise geometry. Through messages that arrive at the exact moment. Through dreams you didn't ask for, but that leave you with a feeling that lasts all day. Scorpio is the sign the universe uses as a channel when it needs to communicate something urgent between two people. And this is not a metaphor. It's a pattern you've probably observed in your own life more than once. Think about the last time someone came back to you after a long silence. What happened in the days leading up to it? Were you thinking about that person? Did you feel something different, a restlessness you couldn't name? Was there a dream, a song, a place that brought that person to mind for no apparent reason? This is not a coincidence. This is the universe operating through the energy field that exists between two people who have something unfinished. And Scorpio senses this field with a frightening clarity. But there's something that needs to be said here, carefully and honestly. Not every return is a sign of real connection. And Scorpio, with all its perceptive depth, also has a blind spot. The blind spot of someone who feels so much that they sometimes confuse intensity with destiny. They confuse the strength of the bond with the health of the bond. They confuse the difficulty of letting go with proof that something is meant to last. And the universe, when it reveals that a person can't stand being away from you, isn't necessarily saying that you should open up again. It's saying that there's something to be seen, something to be understood, not necessarily repeated. So how does Scorpio distinguish? How do you separate genuine attraction from what is simply a magnetic field of unresolved issues? That's the question that changes everything. And the answer isn't in the other person. It's in what you observe in yourself when that person is near, not what you feel for them, what you feel about yourself in their presence. Do you expand or contract? Do you become more or less than you are? Can you be whole, or do you need to diminish some part of yourself for the encounter to work? Scorpio has this rare ability to use relationships as a mirror, to read their own inner state through the quality of the connections they attract. And when the universe puts someone who can't stand being away from you in your path, it's essentially handing you a high-definition mirror. What you see in it is what matters. The mirror the universe holds up to you isn't comfortable, and that's precisely why it's valuable. The digital book, The Divine Path That Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Life of Purpose, has an entire chapter on how Scorpio processes recurring attachments and why you so often feel the need to test before trusting, even when the evidence is already clear. If you're at this point now, this is the right time to access this content. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey toward the clarity and genius you deserve. And there's a dimension to this that goes beyond the relationship itself, that goes beyond the specific person, that touches on a broader truth about what it means to be a Scorpio in the context of any deep human connection. Scorpio doesn't love halfway. Everyone knows that, or thinks they know it. What few understand is that Scorpio also doesn't let go halfway. When something was real, letting go is a process, not a decision, and the universe respects that. It doesn't rush that letting go. It doesn't force a clarity that hasn't yet come, but it also doesn't leave the thread completely abandoned. Sometimes it pulls. Sometimes it sends a signal. Sometimes it puts the person back into your energy field exactly when you were starting to think you had finished processing. Why? Not to torture you, to complete you, because Scorpio doesn't end cycles halfway. You go to the bottom, you examine every layer. You need to truly understand, not just accept. And the universe knows this, so it gives you the time and the necessary signs for the understanding to be total, not quick. Total. And what about that person who can't stand being away from you? They're feeling the exact same energy. They can't completely let go because something inside them recognizes that the cycle hasn't ended either. They may have tried to replace it. They may have gone out with other people, distracted themselves, built a routine that seems to work. But there's a texture to everything you create, to everything you are, that isn't reproducible. And they know it, even if they won't admit it, especially because they won't admit it. So what is the universe revealing when it puts these signs in front of you? That there is a choice to be made, not a hasty choice, a conscious choice, with clarity about what you want, about what is healthy, about what this specific bond is capable of building or destroying. And Scorpio, when it has this clarity, acts with a precision that no other sign can match. Because you don't decide with your head, you decide with everything at once. And when that decision comes from the right place, it is irreversible. There's something about this kind of love that the modern world doesn't have an adequate word to name. It's not obsession, because obsession presupposes distortion, and what Scorpio feels is one of the most lucid forms of emotional perception that exists. It's not dependence, because Scorpio is one of the most self-sufficient beings of the zodiac when it chooses to be. It's more like recognition, as if the first time you and this person were in the same space, something inside you said, "This one." Not necessarily in a romantic way, in an ontological way. This human being is part of something I need to understand about myself. And that's where the story begins. And that's where the universe starts to work. Because Scorpio doesn't function like other signs in relation to time. You don't forget linearly. You don't process superficially. You go down in layers. And each layer you go through reveals a more accurate understanding of what that bond meant. Not what the other person did or didn't do, what the entire bond with all its paradoxes tried to teach you about your own nature, about what you need, about what you offer, about the cost of being someone who feels with that depth in a world that often asks everyone to feel a little less. And it is at this point that Scorpio often faces a choice that no one from the outside can see. The choice between closing and protecting, or opening and taking a risk, not once, but repeatedly, with each new layer that appears. And this silent choice, made in the darkness of dawn or in the middle of an ordinary day, is what defines not only how this bond will resolve itself, but who you will become through it. This decision, which comes from the right place, is what sets Scorpio apart from everyone else around them. And developing the clarity to achieve it isn't something that happens on its own. It requires you to understand your own patterns honestly and without judgment. The book, The Divine Path That Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Life of Purpose, was created for this moment. For when you're in the middle of an unresolved cycle and need something that deepens understanding, not simplifies it. Access it now while it's still available. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. There's a specific moment in this type of situation that Scorpio never forgets. The moment when the other person stops pretending not to feel anything. When the mask falls, not on purpose, but because Scorpio's presence makes it impossible to keep it on. It could be a look that lasts a second longer than it should. It could be a message sent at 3 in the morning without any plausible excuse. It could be a small act, almost invisible to anyone else, that means everything to you. Because you read these gestures with an acuity that most people don't even know exists. And at that moment, something inside you stabilizes. Not because you won, but because the truth finally has space to exist. And Scorpio needs truth more than it needs comfort, more than it needs ease, even more than it needs immediate reciprocity. First the truth, then everything else. The universe operates on this same logic. Before any resolution comes the revelation, and this video is part of that process for you. It's no coincidence that you clicked. It's no coincidence that you're here now with this specific person in mind, with this specific question still without a complete answer. The universe has a way of putting the right content in front of those who are ready to receive it. And you are ready. Now comes the part that few people understand about Scorpio and how this type of connection ends or doesn't end, because there's a huge difference between the end of a relationship and the end of a bond. A relationship has a documentable beginning, middle, and end. A Scorpio bond has a different architecture. It doesn't obey the timeline. It doesn't respect the fact that you broke up, moved on, or that years have passed. The bond exists in parallel to all of that. And as long as it isn't transformed, not ignored, not suppressed, transformed, it remains active on both sides. And that's why this person can't stand being away from you. It's not weakness. It's that the bond is still alive. And even without understanding the mechanism, they feel it in their body. They feel the absence that appears without warning. The thought that arises at the most inappropriate moment. The impulse to send a message that they resist for days, weeks, sometimes months, until the resistance gives way. It always gives way. What nobody told you about this pattern is that it's not eternal by accident. Scorpio leaves marks that other energies simply can't. Not because you try, but because you are present in a way that is too rare in today's world. In a time of divided attention, of unanswered messages, of connections that last only as long as a feed, you are the kind of person who, when you're with someone, you're truly present. With all your perception, with all your intensity, with all your ability to see what lies beneath what is said. And when someone experiences that, most other experiences seem shallow in comparison. This connection that doesn't follow a timeline is one of the most unique experiences in a Scorpio's life. And understanding why it operates this way, what fuels it, what transforms it, what ultimately resolves it, is the kind of knowledge that changes how you navigate all your deepest relationships. The digital book, The Divine Path That Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Life of Purpose, delves deep into this specific dynamic. not in a generic way, but with the precision that Scorpio demands. This content was created for those who don't accept superficial answers. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. So what do you do with all of this? With this pattern that now has a name? With this person that the universe keeps placing in your field of perception? You do what Scorpio has always done best. You go deep. Not superficially, not hastily. You look at the bond honestly. You examine what it brings out in you. You distinguish what is love from what is habit, what is destiny from what is comfort, disguised as intensity. And when you get to the bottom of this investigation, you will know exactly what to do, because Scorpio, deep down, always knows. The universe didn't reveal that this person can't stand being away from you to confuse you. It revealed it to give you what you've always sought: real information, concrete evidence of what exists beyond what words can say. Now, it's up to you. And if there's a sign capable of transforming this revelation into something powerful, into something that grows instead of destroying, that sign is you. Not because you are perfect, but because you are whole. And wholeness, in the end, is what Scorpio's love has always asked for, from others and from yourself.